Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to this brand new episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You're here with me, your beautiful host, once again, Zach, with his beautiful guest today, Jake Rivard. Jake, what's going on, buddy? How you doing today?
Hey, dude, doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain. It's freezing outside, but I'm glad to be here with you because I got the mustache idea from you, my friend.
Oh, man, see, the mustache, I was going to shave it at first, and then it grew on me, so it's stuck since then. There's some old guy in your crowd right now either groaning or laughing at my joke.
It's not me. Jake, for those that don't know who you are, Jake Rivard, where can they find you online and what you do?
Hello, I'm Jake Rivard. I am the founder and owner of 313 Hockey, which is a completely independent coverage of the Red Wings. We focus a little more on vibes than stats, but you can find me at 313hockey.com. I am on all social media platforms under 313 Hockey, and if you subscribe, it's free and it always will be. And there are usually weekly articles. Kind of depends on how I'm feeling, but this week's was a doozy, so I'm sure we'll get into that.
And that is why Jake is here to talk about his most recent article that is titled Bad Luck or Bad Vibes. And I titled it myself, Jake, as Bad Luck Chuck for the Detroit Red Wings. And before we enter into that episode, I'm going to take a moment and say thanks for joining us on this brand new episode. Once again, if you are returning, if you are brand new, thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it. And so does Carlo. If you guys are returning or brand new, if you have not already, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching or listening to us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, hit that notification bell. You can also watch and listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can find us on all your social media platforms as well, like TikTok, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, all those places. And without further ado, Jake, let's just go ahead and break down your article into a video segment. And let's just start here. Let's talk about some of the analytical sides of things, because a lot of people, especially when it comes to hockey, they like to do it based on the eye test. What do the eyes tell us about this team? Analytics do play a role in hockey. That's why we're seeing a lot of teams and organizations get deeper into the analytics side of the game. So based on what you're proposing in this and that model that you showed that was on there on your article, if you guys haven't checked out Jake's article, go ahead and check it. That is on his social media pages and his website. But it seems like that the Wings shots just are not going in like they should. They're getting the plenty of high danger shooting opportunities, but goalies are doing a really good job at deflecting them, stopping them, or the Red Wings just simply aren't putting them in the net. So go in depth about that and what you see the issue being with the Detroit Red Wings right now.
Yeah, so, it's really funny. The moment the Wings seem to play like a backup goalie or like a third string guy, suddenly he becomes prime Dominik Hasek. I do not know what it is, but it has been driving me crazy this whole season. The stat PDO, which is combining shot luck, like basically to describe it, to put it simply, PDO is combining shot luck, which is shots at like high danger chances. So these are places where goals are more likely to go in, with the save percentage of the goaltender. The Red Wings currently are last in the league with a 95.81 PDO. There's been one time that a team has ever ended a season below a 96 PDO, and it was the 2019-20 Detroit Red Wings. I prefer not to remember that team either, but because of that, a lot of analysts believe that a positive regression is bound to occur. So that means there should be more pucks going in the net. There should be higher chances. According to a stat by TSN's Advanced Analytics Department, it's called Sports Logic, the Red Wings are currently outchancing their opponents, but they are being outscored by an average of half a goal or more. So that's bad, but everybody keeps saying that it's bound to change at some point. So fingers crossed on that.
Fingers crossed for sure. Yeah, and it's one thing where we could probably say it's easy for us to say the Red Wings need to score more. Tom McClellan came out after one game. It was when Simon Edvinsson was actually out. It might have been the Nashville Predators game or the Tampa Bay Lightning game because both were 6-3. It would have counted for both. He said Simon Edvinsson probably wouldn't have made that difference for us to get the 7 goals we would have needed, but also in return, in hindsight as well, Simon Edvinsson maybe would have prevented 1 or 2 of the goals that were scored on us. So we still weren't scoring to the pace that we should be to be winning these games. But on top of that, the Detroit Red Wings right now are 6th in the wild card chase. They are 3 points behind the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers, and they're only 1 point back, being tied with Montreal for the third spot in the Atlantic, who have 2 less games played than we do. The Detroit Red Wings currently have a goal differential of -12. Let's talk about Ken Kal and the yips on defense, inserting Hamonic, JBD, and let's even talk about ASP a little bit here, because those are the 3 new guys on the defensive end. Talk about those guys real quick, Jake.
Yeah, so the first thing that I'd like to touch on is actually the Ken Kal quote about the yips. What I've noticed is that whenever this team is down a goal or more, they tend to get nervous, a little anxious. Their passes are a little too hard or a little too soft. The shots are not in areas they should be going. It seems like it's this very nervous sort of feeling, like they're anxiously trying to get a goal, anxiously trying to tie it up. It's almost like they can't respond well to the pressure. And I think a lot of that plays in part with the defense. So, I'm thinking about the Tampa game. I'm trying to remember who had the breakaway, but there was a guy who beat Albert Johansson, who just did not try to outmuscle the guy whatsoever, leading in a goal. It's unfortunate because if we had a couple of these defensemen just play just league average, bare minimum type of defense, I think we would see an increase in a lot of the standings and a lot of these soft goals not going in. Obviously, there's another elephant in the room we'll have to address at some point. But yeah, I don't think that a couple of these defensemen are good fits in the system. I do not understand the Travis Hamonic deployment. He should be a number 7, number 8 guy, the kind of guy who you put in when there are injuries or if you need an emergency replacement. He should not be a guy that's regularly in that lineup. You could probably blame 2 to 3 of those 5 goals with the Preds on Travis Hamonic. He just doesn't have it anymore. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I wish him well, but I don't think he's a good fit in the system at all, and I think that putting him on the roster actually does more harm than good. You could ice 5 defensemen and be more effective.
And it's so funny too, and I have to ask this, Jake. I actually didn't write this one down because I have a list of questions here just based on your article, but is Erik Gustafsson, in your eyes, worse than Travis Hamonic? Obviously, they play different sides, but we've seen Gus play on the right before, especially last season. We saw him play, I think he played 1 game for us so far because he had that call up. But is Gus worse than Hamonic at this point, or in general?
I wouldn't say so. I never really saw him as much of a problem. I just saw him as a defenseman that just simply wasn't good enough to take on one of those roster spots. I was describing this to you before the show, but the bottom pairing of the Wings is kind of like a horror movie. It's like watching somebody go down the stairs in a scary movie, and the monster's down there, and you are screaming at the TV telling them not to go down there. And yet the lineup card comes out, and you see a Hamonic Albert Johansson pairing, or you see Jacob Bernard-Docker back on the lineup. They haunt you. That's how I would describe it. It's a haunting bottom pairing.
What was the crazy stat that the Detroit Red Wings had with JBD in the lineup versus Travis Hamonic?
It's really funny. You notice over the last couple of years, if you just look up JBD Hamonic on any social media, you'll notice over a year ago, Sens fans complaining about how JBD was losing ice time for Hamonic and how Hamonic was just a defensive black hole and how the team started winning after they pulled him out of the lineup. That rings true to this day with this roster as well. The stat I had actually is that the Wings are 7-8 with Travis Hamonic in the lineup and 6-1-1 without him in the lineup. And that was on November 26th. So I imagine now it's 7-9-0, 7-10-0.
Worse.
Yep. Substantially worse.
Let's talk about the Aljo piece here. You brought him up. I actually didn't have this written down either, but I unfortunately was at that game against the Tampa Bay Lightning and firsthand witness, because I was row 6, right at the face-off, dots in the Red Wing zone, when Albert Johansson was in the middle of the slot, gets pickpocketed, and then glove side John Gibson, has his 5-hole just wide open. So on top of that, ASP, another young defenseman on this team. Talk about him real quick and what you like, what you don't like about ASP, because you did touch on him in the article as well. And are a lot of his deficiencies on his own, or would you say it's caused a little bit by Ben Sherratt a little bit, the overnight assassin OT Benny?
Here's the thing is I feel like they're kind of giving ASP the cider treatment of, okay, we're going to throw you feet first into the fire. You got it's sink or swim, figure it out. The problem is that their skill sets are very different. Mo Sider's a little bit more defensively minded. He's not going to be the guy who's going to light up the score sheet. Maybe he'll go half a point per game, maybe a little more. ASP is an offensive defenseman. He relies more on like quarterbacking a power play or setting up plays. He's not going to be the kind of guy who's going to be able to make a lot of these like big brain defensive moves. And he shouldn't have to be that guy. He's the kind of guy you partner with, maybe like a stay at home guy. I hate using this example, but like Nicholas Cronwall and prime. Let me be clear here. Prime Danny DeKeyser.
Everyone's
prime Jonathan Erickson.
Up to here, Jake, because of that.
Oh, like he needs a guy who's going to, because he's going to make mistakes. He's a rookie. I mean, he's been making mistakes all season. Like that. It just kind of happens. But in the future, he needs somebody like smart with him to prevent a lot of those lapses from spilling over. Right now, he's partnered with Ben Sherratt, and unfortunately, even though Ben Sherratt has been playing very good this season, he's actually been I think above average. I don't think he's the kind of guy who you partner with ASP. Yeah, I don't know. I would want like a prime Danny DeKeyser kind of guy to cover up those mistakes.
Yeah, it does seem like ASP is definitely offensively gifted. We can see it, especially him out on the power play. 5-on-5, I would agree with you. Kind of thrown into the wolves. Let's see what you can do. You're going to make mistakes. You have to learn from them. So touching on that as well, that's a lot of this roster right now, Jake. We've said that ad nauseum, that a third or more of this team, they don't have 2 to 3 seasons of NHL experience. You have 3 rookies with not even half a season underneath their belt. We're going into game 27 tonight against Boston. When this releases, it will be the next day. So that's why we're not touching on games or anything like that. But I would agree with you. I think ASP definitely needs someone who, I don't want to say matches him, but someone who's a little bit more mobile, someone who can cover his deficiencies, especially when he goes more on the offense. Because that's one thing that we can say for sure, is that the Detroit Red Wings are lacking in goals all over the place, not just on the offense, but really on the defensive side as well. But I will agree with you. OT Benny, overnight assassin, has been contributing a little bit to that. So has Sider, but we're missing that piece.
I kind of feel like a defense, the pair should be sort of like a power couple where they both kind of cover each other and create like a well-rounded pairing. So like an example would be like a writer and like a scientist, they're both totally different angles, but they're able to overlap where it's needed and they're able to cover certain gaps. I think that this Sider-Edvinsson pairing is very good at that. I mean, you're putting 2 just fantastic defensemen together. I mean, it is a little top heavy, but I think I was thinking about this when it came to like major trades as well. You're going to need to solve that top 4 eventually. You're going to need to find an answer for that. And the sooner you find it, the better. Because the longer they go without at least 4 consistently very good guys, the harder and harder it's going to be to like actually make it count come playoff time or come late season.
And it's funny that you say that, because I think, I'm not going to say all, I'm not going to say the most, but there are definitely some Detroit Red Wings fans that would agree with us, but also put a lot of blame on the goaltending. Glove side Johnny, coined famously by Carlo Mario. We miss you, buddy. But Jake, talk about John Gibson a little bit, but then follow up with, because we're seeing a lot of people make out this call out. I think you know where I'm going at with this. Sebastian Cossa, should he be called up? He just earned AHL Player of the Month. So talk about glove side Johnny, maybe a little bit of Cam Talbot, and then go into Sebastian Cossa for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said best. Glove side Johnny is sort of the elephant in the room we have to address. The fact that he can make saves pretty much everywhere except for his glove side has shown up enough to the point where you have other teams essentially like going out of their way to target his glove side because they know that's a weak spot. And he is just getting shelled out there. I keep wondering like where this team would be if they had league average goaltending. I mean, let's talk like you get Jordan Binnington on the roster. Not that I would want Jordan Binnington on the Red Wings, but you put him there and I guarantee you they win 4 or 5 more games out of the season thus far. It's hard to play in front of a goalie when you can't count on that goalie to make a big save, because it's an inevitability. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you get a guy like Igor Shesterkin for. Like, guys who are going to make those like $1 million saves. I mean, we saw with Andrei Vasilevsky. He played out of his mind with Tampa. He has played out of his mind throughout his entire career. I don't think that Cam Talbot's looked very good at all either. Cam Talbot's what, 38 years old? Like, he's not going to be much of a solution either. To have to rely on your 38-year-old backup is a big problem. I get that they're trying to give them a chance to bounce back and to rebound, but it's starting to cost the team pretty dearly. And I do think that sooner or later, something's going to give. I mean, Cossa just won AHL Player of the Month. He won AHL Player of the Week this week as well. He sported a, 945 save percentage. Like, that is crazy.
Hot. Cossa, hot.
The only issue is where the Griffins are right now.
Mm.
Michael Postava is their would-be starter, and he's injured right now. Carter Guylander's in the ECHL. They did sign Dustin Tokarski as sort of an emergency backup, but he's 38 or 39. And the Griffins are hot right now. I mean, they are the hottest team in the AHL. Do you really want to sacrifice some of those key developing pieces for the Griffins by pulling up Cossa? I would like that personally. Once Postava gets back, I think we're going to see. I think we'll see Cossa called up. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm not going to ask you what the timeline is on that for Postava, because that's something that Grand Rapids really doesn't like to put out. Not too many people.
Yeah, what the heck's going on with Carter Mazer? We haven't heard anything about that.
Ammo is out now as well. So knock on wood, Jake, that it's only happening to Grand Rapids currently right now. The injury bug truly hasn't hit Detroit in bunches like we've seen with other teams within the NHL, right? Like Montreal has 4 players that are out for long term that were 4+ weeks. There's a couple of other teams as well. We touched on that a couple episodes ago, but we saw Carter Guylander get called up when both Cossa and Postava were out injured. Carter Guylander didn't look out of place in the AHL. I think that is someone that continuously improves within the system. I think the Detroit Red Wings hang on to him because he is a slightly bit older, and that's just how goalies work, right? They're little voodoos. Sometimes they take longer, sometimes they don't. And a lot of people right now, they're making the comparison with Cossa, still to this day, with Jesper Wallstedt, who has been killing it.
I mean, what was it? Connor Hellebuck was 24 when he made his first start. Igor Shesterkin was 23. Sometimes this stuff takes time. And I would rather have this team take its time to develop the right guy than rush a dude in really quickly and just hope for the best. I mean, Wallstedt didn't look very good last year. He's figured it out this year. He looks fantastic, but he's also got one of the best defensive cores in the NHL in front of him.
Very true. Yeah, very true. So what does that look like for Cossa if he was to get a call-up? Wings fans would probably expect him to come in and just light it up, maybe some shutouts here and there, maybe only 1 or 2 goal games, because we haven't seen too many games like that out of the Detroit Red Wings. It seems like it's 3+ goals at night in, night out when they go and hit the ice. So what is the expectation for someone like Sebastian Cossa if he does and when he does get that call up? It's inevitable at this point. So what are your takes on that?
I think it's going to depend on which version of the Red Wings shows up. Are we going to get that plucky team from the beginning of the season that was giving every team hell, that was destroying Toronto and roaring a huge comeback against Anaheim? Or are we going to get this soft team that folds under pressure like a wet napkin? I think that how the team responds to adversity is going to affect Kossa's performance. Because he can only do so much. I mean, there's only so many saves you can make, and there's only so much pressure you can put on a guy who's just getting started in the NHL. I would be curious to see it, though. I'm hoping for the best. What I would really like is to bring him up against either a floundering team or a team that's struggling, to kind of give him an opportunity to see what he can do.
I got to pump your brakes a little bit there, because for whatever reason, the Detroit Red Wings certainly come very unprepared when it comes to teams like those, aka the Nashville Predators.
And you know what's rough is I'm looking at the schedule right now, and our next few opponents are the Blue Jackets, the Kraken, the Canucks, and the Flames. 4 of those teams are out of the playoff picture right now. 2 of them are about to commit to a long, full rebuild. To me, that would be a great opportunity to just give Cossa a cup of coffee. Give him a game or 2, see what he can do.
I love that you brought up Vancouver. We're going to bring that up as we inch closer. I
bet we
promise
are.
that. So let's continue along here. But overall, I do agree with you on that and the whole Sebastian Cossa thing. So, kind of reiterating what you said, Postava, we definitely have to wait at least. As soon as that happens, I think it's a good go. You have to call up Sebastian Cossa just to get a look of him. Before we actually continue on, though, what would your direction be to be able to bring up like someone like Sebastian Cossa? Some people think that you can send down one of the two goaltenders. Do you trade one of them, or do you just kind of hope that now that Mason Appleton is out for a decent amount of time, you technically have an open roster spot? But what direction would you go on with this, Jake?
So there have been a couple implications. I believe Jeff Merrick mentioned something. I saw a couple different articles from Daily Faceoff where they were talking about this idea of trading Cam Talbot. I think that the Wings have explored the idea a little bit, and I think that a couple of teams are looking to make at least some sort of between the pipes. If I were to say a team should make that move, it's probably Edmonton.
Yeah.
Their goaltending is not looking great. They're not going to have a lot to bring to the table when it comes to like picks or prospects. But if you can get something for a 38-year-old goaltender on the end of his contract, shoot, you could even retain some salary for that if that's really what you're feeling, and maybe sweeten the pot a little bit. I think that could be interesting. I do think that something is going to have to give, though. I know that we ran with 3 goaltenders last season, but the roster spots are pretty limited with this lineup right now. I mean, it's feast or famine.
What kind of return would you expect to get out of someone like Cam Talbot? And it's no secret, too, you brought up the Edmonton Oilers. That would be my first team of choice that I could see going after a goaltender they once had at one point, Cam Talbot. So there's familiarity there. What could you expect in a return for someone like Cam Talbot? Goalies typically don't get you the greatest return. Are you doing it for the sake of what you're getting in return, or are you doing it more so for the sake of Sebastian Cossa is ready, we need him to be the backup and let John Gibson take on the reins or figure it out?
Would probably say the latter. I wouldn't expect really anything impressive from that return. I mean, you have to think about it from just a pure asset standpoint. 38 years old, sub 800 save percentage. You know, he's dealt with injuries before in the past. You're going to look at like a real late round pick, maybe a couple of years from now. I mean, we've done things with late round picks before. You know, you're seeing Lombardi start to come in. Emmett Finney's playing very well. There's always a chance. Yzerman always talks about how he loves to get extra darts for the dartboard. Whether he uses those here or uses them to trade up in the draft is anyone's guess. But if you can get something out of trading Talbot, I'd say go for it.
I agree with you there. We're staying on goalies. I just got so many questions for you regarding the goalies, and I think this is a hot talking point amongst the fan base for Detroit Red Wings fans in general. The likelihood of the Detroit Red Wings trading John Gibson. It's no secret that the Oilers were in on him as well. He's got one more year left on his contract at, what is it, $6.4 million. Do we also, with that question, do we also feel comfortable with Cossa being the backup or 1A, 1B, whatever the situation is, learning from someone like John Gibson, who clearly is struggling right now?
I mean, there was a period of time where John Gibson was like one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. There was a time where he was consistently top 3, top 5 guy. So, I mean, that knowledge never really goes away. There are still things that he could teach Cossa along the line. Now, Cosa's much bigger, so he's going to have a lot of different mobility than what Gibson had. But I don't really see the team trading him, especially not 27 games into the season. To make a bold move like that, to obtain a goaltender like John Gibson, and then to abandon him not even a season later, doesn't really strike a lot of confidence in the team's process. To me, if I saw a team like abandon ship on their goaltender that quickly, that would be a red flag for me. I mean, we kind of saw that with Edmonton and Jack Campbell, but that was also a pretty different scenario as he was very bad. You know, Gibson hasn't been great, but he has not been the level of bad that Jack Campbell was. So I would say unlikely trade, especially given his salary and given even the short length of the contract. And also, I mean, if Edmonton were to look at him, Gibson I believe he refused to waive his no trade clause when he was with Anaheim because he wanted to be the full-time starter and not split the role with Skinner or anybody else.
He's not even the starter with the Detroit Red Wings, so good luck on you, John Gibson. So one final question for you on these goalies, then we will continue along this episode talking about other topics. But right now, currently, do you believe it was a mistake to trade for John Gibson and not retain Alex Lyon?
No, I don't think so. I think that I understand the vision of trading for a guy like Gibson. Gibson was the best goaltender on the market.
Mm-hmm.
He was the closest thing you were going to get to like a real legitimate upgrade. And even from like an optic standpoint, if you're going into the season with a Lyon Talbot pairing, that doesn't really strike a whole lot of confidence. That's two career backups essentially going in to the season. Lyon played pretty well. I mean, he's been playing fairly well for Buffalo, I believe. But
yeah, he had over a 900 save percentage the last time I looked.
Yeah, like I mean, would that be nice to have now? 100% it would. But in the moment, you have to think about these things as they occurred. In the moment, you had a bona fide starter, a guy who has been a workhorse in the NHL for years, or you have a career backup who's had a pretty good last couple of years. I think the safer bet is to go with the starter. That's just me though.
I would agree with you, and it's always in hindsight, right? During the summertime, it was a no-brainer, right? John Gibson over Alex Lyon. As much as I love Alex Lyon and those beautiful bug eyes that he has, the issue with him is that him and Cam Talbot, we noticed down the stretch, they really weren't making it work for the Detroit Red Wings. And then kind of going backwards to this defense, imagine having two career backup guys. Currently, right now, they're career backup guys, and Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon with this defense. I don't think we would be 2 weeks ago. We were in a first place spot in our division. We probably wouldn't have been there if those two were in that. But that comes with the longevity. Maybe we were, but down the line, it would be getting worse for us, kind of how we are right now. So I agree with you. I think John Gibson was call it the safe bet if you want, or the smarter move to make.
The bold move, yeah. And you know what? You sooner or later in a rebuild, you do have to start making bold moves.
You do. Yeah. And that's what a lot of fans are asking out of Steve Yzerman. And talking about that, someone commented on our most recent episode, actually, saying that we need to fire Tom McClellan and we need to fire Steve Yzerman. Shocker. I know. You can find that pretty much anywhere. Are we still in the Blashill and Snoozy Lalone era right now?
You know what? I don't think we are, but there are traces of it that come out. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like their presence lingers, like a curse or some sort of ghost.
Let me ask you
ghost
real
on
quick.
The bottom pairing.
Let me ask you real quick before you continue on. How much blame for the performance of this team on Todd McClellan?
I think that a coach has to figure out how to get the team to respond to adversity.
Yep.
I would say there's at least a little bit of blame to be had by him, but we've seen this issue with the team long before McClellan was here. We've seen these anxious, insecure, unconfident plays, these really nervous moves for the sake of just trying to generate something. So something's going to have to give sooner or later, and it comes to a point where the coach has to kind of play a role as well. But according to the advanced analytic models, Todd McClellan's actually been coaching almost Jack Adams level of good. Obviously,
considering that a lot of I apologize by saying it like this, the analytic nerds out there pegged the Detroit Red Wings to obviously not make the playoffs. On paper, you looked at the players on this team, and yeah, you surely could have said, there's no way this team makes the playoffs. And then they surprised a lot of people, and based on the other analytics, the Detroit Red Wings should be outpacing them what they currently are. I think on the one that you had in there, the Red Wings are supposed to be 103 points.
Yeah, I think they're a 104 point pace, according to their expected goals. This is not obviously this right here. For the audio listeners, I'm holding up a calculator. This is not how you win hockey. This paints a picture, but you still have to color it in. You still have to add the depth.
So you also brought up the nerves, it's not even unlucky, but some of these players are being super cautious. They're a little nervous on the ice. The vibe in general just truly isn't there. Would you attested to vets realizing that their seat now is truly on fire and that they're trying to overplay to what they actually can do, but also a mixture of these young guys trying to make such a large impression that things are just not going the way that they probably want it to.
You know what? I think it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of the younger players do learn their habits from the veterans on the team. So if they see the veterans getting like, super anxious and nervous when it comes to these deficits, they're probably going to respond in turn like that. You might have a couple rookies maybe trying to play hero puck, but I haven't seen that as much as I have just the team shutting down collectively.
I would say the one player that I've seen, so to say, put the team on my back though, or dough, whatever the word is. That's how you know I'm turning into a boomer myself, still a millennial, thank goodness.
Love that video.
I feel like Lucas Raymond, pretty much that whole entire the core four truly is doing that. And unfortunately, you look at the core four, it's a 23-man roster. So you're kind of, you could see a little bit of that, but the rest of the 19 players, you're kind of taking more of the bad than you are the good from that instance. So what tweaks or changes would you say? Is it something that Tom McClellan needs to do? Do players just need to play a little bit more comfortable, relaxed? Like, what would you do in this type of scenario to, I'm going to use this quote, get the boys going?
I mean, last year, what did McClellan say? Play effing hockey. Like,
Yep.
that's really that. Like, it's not a big brain thing that needs to be fixed. It's a fundamentals thing. It's getting down to just the absolute basics, taking a deep breath and letting the play develop on the ice. Obviously, you still have to be, it's a very fast-paced game. You still have to be constantly aware, but I think that the team just tries to big brain it too much. Like, you'll notice on the power play, they'll pass it one too many times. There will be a couple points where, like, you'll see a guy wide open, just ready to take that shot, and he'll pass it instead. I've seen Patrick Kane do that probably 19 times this whole season.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of that, and I think that the team leans very hard on their top guys, when in reality it should be like, when the top guys can't get it done, there should be other guys waiting in the wings, like a next man up mentality. But we haven't seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of like, oh, this team probably should have lost. Thank God Lucas Raymond had that clutch goal, or like, oh wow, I can't believe Larkin made that play. He totally bailed us out this game.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the pace so far for the Detroit Red Wings season as a whole. And before the season even started, and congrats to Emma Finney and all the other rookies that made this team, but that was one of the biggest holes that we noticed is the left wing spot on the top line. Alex DeBrincat can obviously fill that. Then you're left with that hole at left wing too. Emmett Finney, unfortunately, has gone a little quiet. We saw Mason Appleton kind of get a little hot at the start of the season. He's kind of fallen off on the point production, but he's more of a forechecker, back checker type of player. Anyways, should Steve Yzerman trade for Quinn Hughes, and what would it take, Jake? Because I said on our most latest episode, if you go out and get Quinn Hughes, I don't know exactly what I said that we would need to give up. It's probably more than what I said. If you guys haven't seen that episode, go ahead and check it out. I think this team would be a playoff lock, but I'll temper that and allow you to answer those two questions. Should we trade for Quinn Hughes, and what would it take to acquire him?
Yes, a lot.
Done. Episode's over.
It.
Go home, everyone. Just kidding.
If you trade for a 26-year-old former Norris-winning defenseman in his prime, a guy who has scored almost a point per game in the NHL, you are going to upgrade this defensive core, the likes of which we haven't seen in years. If you get a Hughes-Sider pairing, or even like, split them up and spread out the lines a bit, that is multiple waves of different effective tactics you can put to use. The price tag is going to be pretty high, though. Understandably so. I think it's going to cost multiple first-round picks. I think it's going to cost at least one blue-chip prospect. So you're talking like a Danielson, an ASP, MBN, one of those guys, maybe two, depending on how greedy they want to get, and a roster player. I'm thinking roster players like maybe a Michael Rasmussen, maybe Elmer Soderblom, somebody that they can slot right into the lineup, especially if the Canucks are about to enter this long rebuild. I saw some reports where they were suggesting that they trade like a Lucas Raymond for Quinn Hughes. I don't think that would work.
Yeah, I think that was Pagnota that said that.
Yeah. And now don't get me wrong, I do think that Quinn Hughes is a better player, but he has 1 year left on his deal and he is up for a huge contract extension. And Lucas Raymond is on maybe one of the best contracts in the NHL right now.
Mm-hmm. That's been
He's
highlighted.
playing well above his value. So I don't know. It's going to be expensive. It's going to hurt, but you could get him. The big thing would be locking him down after that. He has 1 year left on his deal after this season, and he'll be up for a fat renewal. And the thing is, he's going to be hitting his UFA status.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to want to go to New Jersey and play with his brothers? Is he going to want to stick around and maybe in some alternate universe, Quinn and Jack or Jack and Luke Hughes decide to become Red Wings? Get all the Michigan boys together. That it all remains to be seen.
Quick question for you. For those that maybe are unfamiliar with the term blue chip prospect, you threw out a couple names there. Some people might disagree with you on the term. They think like players like Lucas Raymond. They think players like Moritz Seider. Maybe even someone like Simon Edvinsson, which I have seen that name thrown out there. And I asked Carlo, I was like, would you involve Simon Edvinsson in a trade? And then following up with, do you believe Quinn Hughes is better than Simon Edvinsson? Would you include him? So give us your definition of what a blue chip prospect is, or I guess the general term for those that might not know.
I suppose for me, maybe in terms of this definition, is blue chip would be one of your like absolute top prospects, like a guy who could eventually make it into the NHL and most likely be a difference maker on the team. You might even say Carter Bear. I don't know. To me, like the first round picks, I would call like high quality prospects. Well, instead of saying blue chip, let's say a high quality prospect or a top tier prospect. I can't help but even wondering like Thatcher Demko is going to be getting a little older for the Canucks too.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they are done with their rebuild, they're going to want to have a bona fide starter. What about like a Trey Augustine? What about a Cossa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could be interesting names.
Yeah, we touched on that too. We were just very uncertain about, because they have not only Thatcher Demko, I'm drawing a blank on the other goalie's name, but he's locked up for a decent amount of time as well. But it would fit potentially the timeline of what the Vancouver Canucks are trying to do. If they want to go into a rebuild, they obviously can do it a lot quicker if they do move on from someone like Quinn Hughes. Going back to it, would you include someone like Simon Edvinsson in a trade proposal to get Quinn Hughes? The way we looked at it is that you're kind of fixing a problem that you have, but then leaving a new hole that might be a little bit smaller because you're losing out on a top four defense.
See, that was my exact worry, is you're getting a guy like Quinn Hughes to solve a top four hole in the lineup. But by trading somebody like Edvinsson, all you're doing is just replacing one hole in the lineup with another, making not a lateral movement because I think Hughes is clearly an upgrade, but it is still, the problem doesn't go away. The problem is just slightly different now. So I guess to answer your question, I would rather not, but if the offer was nice enough, maybe.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we've seen, even with the New Jersey Devils, I'm glad that you actually brought them up. I've seen videos or mock drafts that suggest, someone like Simon Nemec with a forward player that they might have. I'm not exactly sure who, but I've seen Dougie Hamilton's name get tossed around. That's our Simon Edvinsson and that's our Moritz Seider. Unfortunately for us, we don't have that capability to move on from either of those two because like you just said and how I said as well, you're just creating another hole. It might be a little bit smaller, but you're still creating that hole. Unless for whatever reason the Detroit Red Wings are very high on Wallander and Booyam, who we still have not seen play in any NHL action outside of preseason hockey, which kind of wants me to ask the question as well. What are the chances that Vancouver would be interested in some of our prospects that have not played in the NHL? Because you said Michael Rasmussen, you said Elmer Soderblom. I think in my hypothetical last episode, I threw in Albert Johansson. Obviously, it's not 1-for-1 for Quinn Hughes. He's just a filler piece for that young defenseman who can come in cheap. Done.
Yep.
Done. Patrick Alvey.
No take backsies. No take backsies.
Thank you, good sir. But what do you think about that? Honestly, like, what is what is the overall direction that just makes the most sense? Is it to actually go out and get a Quinn Hughes, or let me ask you this question instead. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I think this question would probably be better and resonates more with people at home. Does it make more sense for Steve Yzerman if he wanted to trade on from picks and the assets? Let's say it's anyone's fair game outside of your core four. Everyone is fair game. Does it make more sense to trade for him now or via at the trade deadline, or wait until the offseason come draft day? Because like you mentioned, still has one more year. You don't know if he'll sign an extension. If you do it at the draft, that extension has to be in play if you make that trade. So which route are you going here, Jake?
Sign and trade, so to speak.
Yeah, so to say.
I think it would be a lot. I think it really depends on what you see the goal of this season being. If you see this season as a development year where you're giving the rookies a chance to, get acclimated at the NHL level, you're going at a pace that's comfortable for the youth, I think that trading at the draft would be a much smarter decision. And I would put everybody on the table besides the core four. No matter, basically give them a blank check and tell them to take their pick. If the goal is to make the playoffs this season, though, I would look at it maybe sooner than later. The problem is, I guess I just don't really know what his trade value is going to look like. I'm sure that the Wings wouldn't be the only one with questions about his future with whether or not he would sign an extension, because nobody wants to mortgage their entire prospect pool for a defenseman who's going to be there for a season and a half only to go play with his brothers.
Did you notice I just did my Alex Lyon eyes for those that are actually watching this? That was my Alex Lyon eyes right there. I missed that.
That was really impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just going to be so interesting to see, because I look at it from their perspective of, I guess, kind of going back to it. I mentioned it earlier on this recording. Maybe there were conversations with Tom McClellan, Steve Yzerman saying or maybe I said this off air before we started recording. Anyways, nonetheless, if shit truly did hit the fan, then you're going to start going into like this young guns roster situation and you're trading off everyone. So you'd wait a little bit. I'm just not sure from a Vancouver standpoint, whether if it's Detroit or New Jersey, if they want to do it mid-season without knowing what the picks are going to be. Because you mentioned, and I agree with you, it's not going to be one first-round pick, even if you included two A-plus prospects or blue-chip prospects, whatever you want to call them. It's going to have to include multiple first-round picks. And I agree with you. We probably don't even know what the value of Quinn Hughes truly is. We saw Mikko Rantanen get traded. That's probably the closest comparison of a player that we've seen at that caliber get traded.
We saw the Tkachuk trade a couple years ago.
There was that one, but that that one's a little different, I feel like, only because he kind of just said flat out that he wasn't going to re-sign there with no cap, no term, no nothing attached to that.
I think there have been some implications with Hughes in Vancouver, but I don't think he's outwardly said it himself. I think my guess would be his agent is sort of leaking things bit by bit. Like, he wouldn't be opposed to being moved, I
mean, who wouldn't want to come back to their native homeland, Michigan, here in Detroit? And I think
I'm sorry, you don't want to play in Hockeytown? Yeah, skill issue.
And that's the other thing, too, is that I think if Ilitch is hearing this, and I'm a non-believer, I know a lot of people say Ilitch stops Yzerman from doing his job. People who own businesses, organizations like this, they don't hire people just to tell them what to do. He hired Steve Yzerman for a reason. But I would say with some confidence that Chris Ilitch is going to Steve Yzerman saying, if this kid does become available, I will give every fan in that arena on his first game a jersey with his name written on it saying Hughes.
I would like one of those jerseys, Mr. Ilitch. I'll send you my contact information after this recording.
I won't be at the game. Yeah, send it to my house, please, sir. Please.
I would like you to send me it.
But you kind of think about that in the back of your head where it's good for a business perspective. It's good for the overall organization perspective. And then from the team perspective, everyone would win, the fan base, the organization, and the team as a whole would win based on a Quinn Hughes trade. To kind of wrap this all, Jake, to kind of wrap it all up, what would a Quinn Hughes, in a nutshell, do for this organization, not just for now, but in the future? And if we did make the trade, does it set this team back? That's been a lot of phrasing by everyone for quite some time amongst the Detroit Red Wings fandom, is that if you go out and make this blockbuster trade, you're going to push back your timeline more than what it is.
I actually completely disagree with pushing it back. I think
right,
if anything,
here we go.
I think if anything,
Bring it
getting
on.
that guy, getting a guy of Hughes' caliber, again, a Norris-winning defenseman, one of the top 3, if not top 2 best defensemen in the NHL, that opens your window. Because by that point, you've got your top line center. You've already got a number 1 defenseman in Mo Seider. You've got a 90-plus point potential winger in Lucas Raymond. You've got a lot of rookies that are ready to make the next step. I mean, you've got Max Plant, you've got Dmitry Bachelnikov, you've got Amadeus Lombardi. There are so many different other names you can pick from. MBN, who still leads the Red Wings in expected goals. There are a lot of different pieces you can pull. There are a lot of guys
that you can about MBN. Does he?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. You can. I mean, there are guys like Carter Bear that are still on the come up. We have a very full prospect pool, one of the best prospect pools in the NHL. Not all of them are going to make the roster. Sooner or later, there are going to have to be some guys that are moved. You trade for a guy like Quinn Hughes, you're putting everybody on the table. You're getting a 26-year-old defenseman in his prime. Now, I'm assuming in this hypothetical fantasy world that he also signs an 8-year deal, or I think it's a 7-year deal now with the new CBA. But you get one of those guys, and immediately you become a playoff team. You become a destination for free agents to look at and to regularly consider. You have one of the best, probably the best defensive pairing in the NHL if you put Hughes and Seider together. The kind of difference maker this could be for a franchise is massive. And so I'm team trade for Quinn.
If we do end up trading for Quinn, he wears the C over in Vancouver. Do you give him an A?
I would, yeah. I mean, I guess we'd have to roll 3 A's maybe, but they've done that before.
I was going to say, that's not the weirdest thing ever,
no.
Right? I think there are still some teams that actually do that, even with still having a captain on their team.
Exactly, yeah. You could absolutely make that work. Or you have maybe the defenseman rotate captain or alternate captaincy. One for home, one for away. They did that with Cronwall and DeKaiser for a while.
And it was super annoying. Throwback. I'm just finally glad that they finally inserted them on Seider and Raymond's sweaters moving forward. So hopefully no swapping of those. Thank goodness. But Jake, I think this is a good wrapping point. The Detroit Red Wings will be playing here pretty soon against the Boston Bruins. For those that are catching this, it is the next day. We hope you enjoyed.
I can't believe they won 9-0. They destroyed the Bruins. The franchise folded. It was such a big blowout.
Trade us James Higgins for Ben Sherratt, Boston, please.
You know what? A lot of people are saying that, and this is true, folks, that should happen.
Jake, for the folks at home that didn't catch it the first time at the beginning of this episode, tell them where they can find you, what you do, and everything that you're currently working on.
313 Hockey is, as quoted by an anonymous person, hi Alice, the greatest coverage of the Red Wings of all time. You can find me at 313hockey.com. You can find me on all social medias as at 313hockey. Reach out to me at any time. I'll give you commentary on, I don't know, anything. Mostly vibes based though. Don't ask me about stats. Don't ever ask me about analytics unless it's to prove my narrative. But yeah. I will be at a couple games in the future, so if you see me, feel free to say hi. I have stickers, I have good vibes, and I'll give you useless trivia.
He, unfortunately, has not given me useless trivia yet. Maybe once we get done with this recording, maybe you can give me some of your wealth of knowledge over there, buddy. But that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for those of you that made it to the end of this episode. If you are returning, but also if you are brand new, thank you, as always, for stopping by. If you haven't already watching or listening to us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, hit that notification bell. We're also on Apple and Spotify. You can also find us on all your major social media platforms. And with that being said, Jake, until next time, we'll see y'all on the next one. See ya. We love you. Goodbye.